Hello and welcome back to My Own Worst Enemy. We're going to start another playthrough. This time we are going to play through Vive la Emperor. This, of course, is from Herman Luttman, and this is from Blue Panther Publishing. And I did an unboxing on this a while back, so make sure to check out that video to see the components of this. I will run through a little more detail on what's actually on the counters before we start here. So this is a solitaire game of the Battle of Waterloo, and you can tell just from looking at the map, very high level. It is also a two-player game of the Battle of Waterloo. You can play two-player or solitaire. The selling point, of course, is solitaire, and there are activation tables here for the coalition forces. And normally I like to play these things without the assistance, the AI, if you will. I like to just double hand these, but I will use these activation tables for the coalition units so that you can get a feel for how it plays using the artificial intelligence for the opponent. And I know that calling it artificial intelligence is it's silly because there's really no intelligence here. It's basically a flow chart or just rolling some dice and seeing what happens, but that's what we'll call it. I don't know why. The two-player scenario basically tells you not to ignore those tables and have the coalition player make a few basic changes, but basically you're just going to make the decisions yourself. Now, I don't know why you couldn't also maybe reverse this with a little bit of work. I don't know why you couldn't rework this such that you could play the coalition and maybe have these die rolls move the French units. So that might be something worth looking into at some point. But for now, we're just going to play the solitaire version of this as intended. So if you think it's solitaire only, don't write it off. It is actually a two-player game as well. So let's take a quick look now at the setup. This is the campaign scenario. So this is in the back of the book, the game setup for the Anglo-Allied units, they call it. It tells you which of the corps and the markers to put out. The Prussian units are also out. And the way the Prussian units are going to work, so they're over here on the activation markers for these corps are on the turn track. And as things happen in the game, the timing of when these units will enter will change. So they'll move kind of down the turn track this way. And as the turn marker advances, when that turn marker hits one of these units, they're going to come onto the board. They'll come into play. So that kind of will randomize when these units will appear. In fact, when we start the game, you'll see that the turn number one is at 9 a.m. Well, that may not happen at 9 a.m. There's some weather that may cause the game to actually start later. So we'll see that when we start. So as far as setup goes, it tells you exactly where to place the units. It's up here. And you will place the coalition markers in the spaces indicated. And so for the French setup, the book tells you which corps you're going to put out and the activation markers. I got the activation markers over here. This is what will go into the randomization cup that will pull these chits to determine who gets to move. But it tells you where to place the corps. So in this case, it would say the one corps, all units within 3 hexes of 1309. So you'll look at 1309 and I will grab a marker. So 1309 is here, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, so 1309 is here. So that marker, that hex is 1309. And so it would tell you to place all units within 3 hexes of that. So you'll take all the one corps markers and put them within 3 hexes of that. And so I have done that for each of the corps involved here. And it tells you, the Imperial Guard, the Cavalry Corps, where they all go. I've put them out with where I think they ought to be. You don't have a whole lot of play in these things. They're mostly within 2 or 3 hexes. Actually, they're just that within 1, 2, or 3 hexes. So you don't have a whole lot of freedom into where to put them, but you do have a little bit to kind of set these things up. So I just kind of put them out what I thought might be best. They're going to move as they activate. The way it's set up now, there's not going to be a whole lot of interaction between these units anyway. These hexes are 400 yards. So you're really high level strategic. You're going to have to move in to do battle. And then another thing we are told to do is put out the reverse slope deployment marker in the coalition marker box here. Basically, this marker box will be any special events that are in effect. In this case, the reverse slope deployment, we will see when there's a battle, is basically going to change the target number for the coalition unit. So it's telling us that this is out. And then when we go from turn 2 to turn 3, we're going to remove that marker from the coalition box. And we could add other markers in there as the game goes on. Over here, I've got couple of other markers that potentially could come in. There's some control markers, and of course there's some shaken and some disrupted markers we'll put on the units as we play the game. And now let's take a look at the units themselves. So the coalition markers, you have these pink units up here, pinkish units. Those are going to be the coalition units in this case. Those units are going to be the what they call the Anglo-Allied Army units. Now there are also Prussian units. They're not on the board yet. They will come into play, like I said, based on when they are activated on the turn track here. So their units actually, well, I've got those off to the side over here, and they're on these white counters. So there you can see a Prussian unit, which will come into play at some point. And so now let's take a closer look at these units. I will zoom in here so we can take a closer look, and I'll tell you what actually is on the counter itself. All right, so zoomed in here, we can see that a counter, and I've got it such that you can see the French units and the coalition units. They're pretty much the same, the way that the information is displayed, the difference being that the French units will have their strength points and other information on the bottom. The Allied markers will have those on the top, so it's just kind of a reversal between the units. So what are those numbers, or what are these information things that we are seeing? Let's just look at this unit here. The number in red, this 3, is going to be the strength points, the strength point factor for that unit. Basically, it's the complement of the soldiers in that unit, and it is just a regular size unit, and it will determine number of dice in battle. This is kind of a what you might call a bucket of dice game. So we're going to be throwing dice, and we'll see that when we have our first battle. So that red number is the strength point. That next number next to that is the artillery factor. So each unit will have an artillery factor. And there are artillery units in the game, as you can see here. So there's an inherent artillery factor with each unit. So there's going to be some, basic artillery with all of the units, which they can use to bombard. And you can tell that the artillery factor for these units are rather small compared to an actual artillery unit. The third number is what they call the Elan rating. That's this number in green. So the Elan rating is basically a combination of morale and quality of the troops. So the higher that number is, the better it's going to be for the unit. So you definitely want to see that number to be high. And then along the top of the unit, in the case of the Allied units, the bottom of the units, but along the top of the units here, that is going to be the unit ID. So the background color, of course, will tell you which activation chit it's going to belong to, and which. So you can tell at a glance, and if you're familiar with the Shattered Union series, it's sort of the same thing. You can see here that the 1 core has this blue bar. You can immediately see that there are other blue bars in that 1 core. So when you pull that activation chit for the 1 core, you're going to know immediately that these are the units that can take an action. So that's what that is. And of course you have the names of the units up there as well, which I will grossly mispronounce as we go through the playthrough. Now, as these units take hits, you will flip them. So let's grab this counter. We will flip it over to its, what they call the battle-worn side. You'll note immediately there's a gray bar across there denoting that there is a battle-worn side there. And actually, as I'm looking here, I've set this up. I wasn't paying attention to the battle-worn side. So really all these units where you see a gray bar, I will flip back to their fresh side. So yeah, these are on here incorrectly. I'll flip those back to their regular side. This is the battle-worn side. You note that the numbers are reduced here. Now these units will go through a couple of steps. So I will grab those markers and show you that as they take hits, they will become shaken, and they can also become disrupted. So as they take hits, these markers will also go on top of those units to show the step losses. So we will see that as we go through some battles. So let's zoom back out now. I will flip all of the French markers back to their corrected fresh side, and we'll zoom back out and continue on. All right, we are zoomed back out here, and I've got all the French units back to their fresh side. And I want to show you one more thing here. I'm going to grab this artillery marker. There are stacking rules in the game, so there can only be 1 unit, 1 counter in a hex, unless, in the case like where you see this artillery unit, there's an asterisk by the strength points. The asterisk means this is a small unit, and it can stack with 1 other unit. So this is a case where you can have 2 units in 1 hex. The only case you can do that, of course, is if you have that asterisk there by the strength point number. The H that's above that 3, the artillery factor, that just means this is a heavy artillery unit, and it's simply going to increase the bombardment range for that unit. So that's what that is, and that will conclude the information on the counters. That tells us exactly I've told us exactly what all these counters do now. So everything is set up and ready to go. And what I will do is put the activation markers. So the activation markers, I'll show you an example of one of those. So this is an activation marker. If we pull this, it will tell us that the one corps for the French will get to activate and conduct one action. And I will go through what the action choices are when we actually get a unit action. So there is a counter for each of the corps, and that includes the cavalry and any French corps that's out. There are 2 of these Napoleon commander activations. There's one for Wellington as well. These are special counters that will let us take special actions. So we can choose to hold these or we can use them immediately, but they will let us take special actions during the gameplay. The Allied counters and the Prussians, and here's Blucher. So the Allied counters and the Prussian counters will also go into the cup. There is, like I said, a Wellington counter, which will cause some special features to happen for the Allies. And then, of course, the Blucher will also have some special actions that will come into play, and we'll see those as we draw them. But all of these markers, I will grab the randomization cup, and we'll put all of these chits into the cup. This is what will drive the action. So let's get all of these activation markers into the cup. And we will pull those and start the game. Also, the game does ship with, and I show this in the unboxing, there are 6 of these D6s. I have chosen to pull my own dice out. We're going to use blue for the French, red for the coalition. There are cases where we'll be rolling for both at the same time. And I noticed that the rulebook actually mentioned that you should get 2 different colored D6s in the game. I did not. I got all white. I don't know if that was a misprint or maybe I got the wrong dice. Maybe I should have gotten 3 of one color, 3 of another. I don't know, but I am going to use my dice, my own dice here to distinguish between the French and the coalition. So that's why you see these here and the game dice sitting there. So I'm going to grab the sequence of play, which is here. Sequence of play, not very much going on here. It's basically 4 steps. You'll advance the game turn marker, draw an activation chit from the cup, do your activation, then end the phase. The player aid here is excellent. It has exactly the test, the movement, the combat, everything you need to step through this. So excellent job on these players aid. Really nice cards here. Again, there's the commander activation tables, and this is what we can use when we pull the Napoleon chit or the Wellington chit, and the Blucher chits over here as well. So let's just go ahead and jump into this thing and get started. I don't think I'm going to play a full game. In fact, I know I'm not going to play a full game. I just want to go through maybe a turn or two to show you how it works, how the flow chart works for controlling the Allied units in a solitaire game, so you can get a feel for how this thing works. All right, but before we step through that, if you look at the main campaign here, there's a rainy start. So it says that the game begins randomly due to rain and wet ground. So the game turn marker currently sits at turn 1, 9 a.m. Roll a die on game turn number 1. If you roll a 5 or a 6, the game begins immediately. If not, roll again, but add a +1 modifier for each turn after turn 1 until a 5 or 6 is rolled. The game will begin with that game turn, whichever one it lands on, no later than game turn number 5. And it says historically the exact beginning of the battle is questionable. Generally, it is believed to have started somewhere between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to roll a d6. We'll use one of the game white d6s to roll this. So on a 5 or 6, we're going to start this game. So basically, does the game start at 9 a.m.? Let's roll and see. A 3, so no it doesn't. So we're going to move now the game turn marker up to turn number 2. We will add +1 to this die roll. Looking for a 5 or 6. Well, there it is. So the game is going to start at 10 a.m. We've rolled a 6 here with the +1. So the game will start on turn number 2. And again, the reverse slope marker there will come off when we hit turn number 3 is all that means. So the only thing left to do now is draw the activation marker out of this cup. So I'm going to give this a good shake. Get this nice and randomized, and we're going to see what the first marker out of the cup is, and it is, what is this? It is a 6-corps activation. So you pull the marker, put it in the used activation marker, and we look for the 6 corps. They are located, where are they located? They're over here. So this is the no, I'm sorry. There's a 4 cavalry corps here. The 6 corps is over here. So this may be good that they came up because they are towards the front of the line. So all of these units will activate, and there are 2 units here. There is, like I said, a artillery marker with the asterisk, meaning that it can stack with that other marker. So we're going to look at this and see how we want to move these units or what activations we can take. So the eligible actions that we can take with these units would be maneuver, which is your movement, your bombardment, which you can do with your artillery units. And remember, you also have artillery factors on the other units as well. Combat is going to be, you're going to have to be adjacent to an enemy unit to initiate combat. So that's what the close combat is referring to. And then rally, you could rally a unit if it were shaken or disrupted or maybe even flipped on its other side. So again, those 4 actions we can choose to take are maneuver, bombardment combat, rally, and close combat. So we need to look at these 4 units, 5 units, and determine what do we want to do with those units. So the first thing I want to do is look under here at this artillery unit. And it is a heavy artillery unit. So I'm going to flip these over so we can see that artillery. So that H on there, what does the H on there mean? I think I mentioned that it had an increased range when it fired, and that's exactly what it is. It can fire no further than 4 hexes away. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in theory, 1, 2, 3, 4. We could fire this artillery unit at these 4 units and potentially hit. Or we could choose to move the unit. Now we can't move and fire, although I believe that's one of the abilities that the Napoleon counter would give us if we had pulled it, that we could take 2 actions where we could move and then fire. I'm not sure if that would work with the artillery unit or not. We'll figure that out when we actually pull that Napoleon. In this case, though, this artillery unit would not be able to move forward and then fire. Now, we also have to be aware of line of sight. The line of sight is not that complicated in this game. And the line of sight rules, basically, it's center of hex to center of hex, where it says line of sight may pass through a hex containing other units of either side. It is blocked if it passes through an intervening ridge hex, and that's these hexes with the dark marker along the border. That is a ridge. It's saying that if it passes through intervening ridge hex and both the firing and the target units are on flat hexes. So this would be an intervening ridge hex. So this unit could not fire at these units because there is this intervening ridge hex, it is saying. If both hexes are on the same elevation, and there is intervening woods, building, or walled buildings. And walled buildings, in this case, are these red hexes would be the walls. And we'll see how that works when we get to combat for those walled units. There are buildings on the map as well. Let's see if I can see an example. Yeah, so here's some buildings that are actually on the map. There's some more up here and over here. So we have to be aware of line of sight, and in this case, like I said, because we do have a ridge here, that is going to block the line of sight, or let me make sure that's right. No, actually, I don't think I'm saying that quite right. So the line of sight is blocked if it passes through a ridge hex, but that's if both the firing units are on flat hexes. So these are the flat hexes. These are this light green color on the hex here. That would be the flat hexes. So in this case, they're both on these elevated hexes. So I believe they actually could take a shot here at, well, they could take a shot, I believe, at this unit. This one is down on the flat hex, so they would be firing down, and I don't think they could hit that unit, but they could certainly fire at this unit. But all that aside, I'm not going to fire. I'm just going to move these units. So we're going to go to the maneuver, and I'll grab the player's aid card here because, like I said, everything that you need is on here. So there's movement. So let's start with the artillery unit, that heavy artillery. So artillery and infantry can move 2 hexes, and there are some things we have to be aware of. Difficult terrain, enemy threat, units stop when entering woods, buildings, walled buildings, or adjacent to enemy units. There is slowing terrain, so if you cross from flat to ridge, you're going to expend 2 movement points. And of course, there's prohibitive terrain. River hex side, you cannot cross except if there's a road there. And then, of course, roads negate any of the difficult or slowing or prohibited terrain types. And of course, unit stacking must remain in effect. And it says Prussian zone restriction, no French units in 19XX or 20XX hexes until the first Prussians enter. So that's these 2 units along the side. No French units may enter these 2 columns here of these hexes until the Prussians enter the battle. So let's go ahead and move our units. So we're going to start with the artillery unit. It's going to move 2 hexes. I'm just going to move it up to the front here along this road. I'm going to move this unit with it. This is light cavalry. It's going to move up. And then these other 3, I'm going to move 1, 2, and this one is actually down on the road below this ridge. So I'm going to move it to this flat hex. He's going to go up the hill onto the road. That's going to cost 2, so he can only move 1 hex. There's 2 movement points to get there. This one we will push up to LaBelle here. And so the entire 6 corps now has moved. So that completes the 6 corps activation. Again, we pulled that marker, it's out here. We've taken the legal actions that we could take with our units that make up that corps. And we check the box, or the cup, I should say, for markers. If there's still markers in the cup, then you will keep drawing activation markers. So let's draw the next one. And reach in here and randomly grab another one. And we have pulled a Napoleon commander activation. So what does that mean? So the Napoleon activation marker, this is going to give us access to one of 5 special actions that we can take. And if we look at the activation tables, you can see here that there is the Napoleon marker here, and it tells us what those 5 special actions are. Now we can choose to play this whenever we wish until the end of the turn. So I'm going to put this down here at the bottom of the board to show that I have one of these in my hand. There are 2 of these in the cup. I'm gonna put this down here for now. We may play it now. Let's wait and see. But we can hold it until the end of the turn. So the first one is this pass to charge. Play during a French corps activation. Each active unit may move 1 hex of any non-prohibitive type for free and then do another unit action. So this is where I was telling you we could move and fire. The son of Austerlitz, pick any hex to perform a special rally on up to 3 units who are not adjacent to an enemy unit and who are in or adjacent to the chosen rally hex. So that would be useful once we actually have some of these markers on our units. Vive l'Empereur, increase any French unit's Elan rating by +2 before an Elan or panic test. And we haven't had those yet, but basically you're going to add +2 to one of those checks. Beautiful Daughters Grand Battery, designate a hex containing 1 or 2 heavy artillery units. Conduct bombardment combat with each unit only in that designated hex. The 2 selected units may combined fire normally. So that is basically going to just give us an extra attack, it looks like. And then there's the Bearskins. Play at the start of an Imperial Guard Corps activation. All enemy units targeted with any Old Guard unit, close combat attack only, must take an Elan test. If failed, then the enemy unit loses 1 step and retreats 1 hex. So that's kind of nice. So I'm going to hold this for now. I don't want to use any of those special actions now. I really can't anyway because there's nothing I can do. So we're just going to hold that Napoleon activation counter and hope that we can use it later. And so that's that activation marker. Note that it's not used. I'm putting it down here showing that I can use it. And let's get that D6 out of there. So let's draw another activation marker. And it is the Prince of Orange. So it's like the 1 corps for the, and I'm going to put this up here. We'll put these in order as we go along. I'll just kind of go across. So let's see, what does that mean? That means we are going to roll 2d6 and we're going to look at this chart and it will tell us exactly how that corps will move, react, what it's going to do. So I'm going to grab, and again, I said for the coalition I would use red, so we're going to grab 2d6, see what the outcome is on this chart, and we will move that 1 corps according to that. Now, where is the 1 corps? That's the orange bar markers on these units. So there's one, is that one supposed to be way over there? Did I mess up setup? Let me check real quick. Yeah, according to setup, he is supposed to be there. I guess maybe they were late to battle. I'm not sure what's going on there. But anyway, these orange counters are the ones that are activated. So you grab the activation table, and actually I can't use 2 reds. I'm gonna have to use a blue and a red. And we'll say that the blues are the 10s number and the 1s are the 1s number. So you're basically rolling a, what do you call that? It's 11 to 66, I think it is. And again, the blue will be the first number, the red will be the second number, and we'll see what those 1 corps units will do. So the blue is a 2, the red is a 6, so that's 26. Find 26 on the table here, the activation table. So 20 is 25 through 42, that is advance. Units will move closer to the French and attempt to engage them. Infantry says we'll move adjacent to the nearest battle-worn French unit. So you'd first look for any battle-worn units on your French side. They're going to target those. If starting adjacent to a battle-worn unit, they'll just attack it, is what it's saying here. There are no such eligible French units. The Anglo-Allied infantry unit conducts a bombardment at the nearest French unit. So here we're going to be looking, we're not going to do anything, I can tell you now, because there are no French units. Well, I say not doing anything. We're not going to be attacking. There are no French units close to any of those units. So what's going to happen is it says the units will move closer to the French and attempt to engage them. So there's going to be no engagement, but they are going to move towards the French units. And I should point out, this table continues on that it says Anglo-Allied cavalry units starting within 2 hexes of a French unit will conduct a cavalry charge. And again, none of those units are within 2 hexes of the French units. And if not, then they will conduct a bombardment combat instead. If neither is possible, they will move towards the nearest French unit that they would be eligible to charge. And then the Prussian units have their own informational or their own rules of what they will do. And then there's all artillery units down here will move towards the nearest French unit and stop within their range and line of sight. So basically artillery units will try to get closer and in good firing position to the French unit. So let's take a quick look here and see what each of these units will in fact do. So let's start over here with this lost unit. This is Chasse, C-H-A-S-S-E. So this unit is going to move closer to, all he can do is move closer towards the French. I'm going to move him kind of towards his core. He seems lost, so let's try to get him back over towards his core so that when they activate, he can activate with them. So he can move 2, because there is a road here that goes through the woods. So it negates the effect of the wood. So he's going to go 1, 2, and then we'll go to the next unit. And this unit, I'm just going to move forward 1 because he can't go down the slope. That would be 2 movement points to do that. So he's going to move 1 there. This unit is going to move, and I got to be careful of stacking here. So this unit is going to move, let's move this unit first. This unit's going to move down to here. That's as far as he can move. This unit I'm going to leave where he's at, and then this unit is going to move. Is this unit going to move down? Let's go ahead and move him down the slope. So that's 1, 2. And I'm just looking because there is an asterisk above that unit. So he can actually stack. We might want to move him into this hex. Let's move him into this hex so he'll be inside those walls. And then there's one more unit over here. And it's going to move, I think, also down into this hex. So that'd be 1, 2. So that is this Prince of Orange core has activated. All units have moved. They've done what they could do. And again, use common sense here when you're moving these units. Think about what these allied units would want to do and try to do that. So you're going to be using these activation tables as a guideline. You're not going to, you're going to try to use some intelligence as you're using this table. So in this case, I had to, since they couldn't fire or attack, the specifics here didn't really come into play. You're going to move the unit. So I did what I think any player of the Allied forces would do and try to get those units together and maybe down towards battle. So that's it. That is another activation. We're going to go back now to the cup and draw the next activation marker. And it is, well, it looks like the coalition's going to move again. So this is the 2 corps, and we'll put it out here. And the 2 corps, where are they? They are over here, I think. It's these purple the purple counters, purple marked counters. So there's 3 of those. So again, go back to the activation table. I'm going to roll the 2d6s again. So 11 to 66 will be the result. That is a 62. So we look up, what is a 62? Reinforced recapture. Units will actively move to help defend a victory point hex. Now, we didn't talk about victory point hexes. So let's do that. So the victory point hexes, the walled building hexes, of which there are 3, and those are, like I said, the ones that have the red walls around them. So starting with the one over here, the the one that starts with H, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. This is the most valuable victory point hex. It is 6 victory points to hold that hex. The next one is La Haye Saint, which is here. This one is worth 4 victory points. And then the Papelotte hex is worth 2 victory points. Any building hex is worth 1 victory point. So any building hex is worth 1 victory point. And that would apply to these back here as well, I'm assuming. And then what they call allied lines of communication hexes, those are called out. So like 0204, 0204 is here. And you can see the star in there, and I'm pretty sure that means that is a line of communication hex. 0903, so 0903 is here. And I'm pretty sure we'll see yeah, so there's a star there as well. So anywhere there's a star basically is a victory hex. So those are victory hexes. And you're going to want to look at those when you look at this activation table that tells you that a victory hex is in play. So again, back to, we rolled the reinforced capture. All units will actively move to help defend a victory point hex or recapture a hex that is under French control. And it tells us that a victory point hex qualifies for this result if it is under French control or has 1 or more French units adjacent to it. Now, there are no French units adjacent to, well, let's see, I shouldn't say that because there are some back here that are adjacent to these victory hexes, so that may come into play. The victory point hex must be within 4 hexes. Again, I don't think for these units, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So they are within 3 of this one, and they are within 3 of these up here. So they're probably going to move towards probably going to move towards this one, honestly. And again, you've got to use common sense here and think about what would these 3 units, what would they be trying to do? Which victory hex would they be trying to protect or go for? Well, I'm going to say in this case, they're going to try to get down here and help protect and defend this most valuable victory point hex, which like I said is worth 6 points. Now there is an asterisk there that, and this is a detachment counter. So I'm going to show you that's on the side of this counter. Let me get this right side up so that you can see that it says along the right there is a detachment, and there are special activations for detachments back here. We'll read those when we get to them. So they're going to try to get down here. This is a small unit, it has an asterisk by it. So this unit can stack with that unit. I don't know if it can get there or not this turn though. It's going to have to go down. Well, there's a road, so it negates the ridge, so it can go 1, 2. I don't think it can actually cross into this hex because of the wall. I think that would take 2 movement points to do. And again, referring to the player aid will tell you exactly what that means. So if they move difficult terrain, difficult terrain, enemy threat, unit stops when entering woods, buildings, or walled buildings. So basically, if they enter the walled hex, they're going to have to stop, which they're going to want to do here anyway. So they're going to move 1, and then it would be 2 to get to the same hex as this unit, and then they'll stop. So let's do that. So 1, 2. This unit is going to try to get down there as well. It's on a road, but it can move in the clear hexes. It can move 2. So it's going to go 1, 2 to get adjacent to that walled hex. And then this one way back here is just going to move forward 1, 2. So these units are moving forward to try to defend that victory hex, because that's what I think they would do. And that's kind of what that's exactly what this is telling us when we roll those dice. Again, use common sense. I mean, you have to, it's a guideline. You're trying to do what you think the enemy player would do. And I think that's what they would do. So now let's go back to the activation cup and see who gets to go next. And we pull the 2-core activation. So that's going to be good for us. So where is the 2-core? They're sitting over here. There are, looks like 5 of those units. There's artillery sitting here on this ridge. And then we have these armies with it. So let's start with the artillery unit, because I think this artillery unit, is it heavy? It is, let's go and just put it on top here. It is a heavy artillery unit, so it can fire up to 4, but in this case, I don't think it matters because this unit is 2 away. So we're going to see some artillery fire here. All right, so let's step through this to make sure we get it right. So it tells us right off that the maximum, and I'm looking at page number 7 in the, this is under the bombardment combat section. And again, the rule book is outstanding the way it's laid out. It refers to other sections of the rule book. It tells you exactly where you can find information. So heavy artillery, no further than 4, not going to matter here because this one's only 2 away. Check your line of sight. Line of sight is not going to be blocked. This one is up on a higher elevation, as is the target. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a blue marker to show that this unit is firing at this unit so we don't get confused. So we have line of sight. Now we get the bombardment dice. And you look at the artillery factor. So for the heavy artillery unit, that firing factor is 3. And so we're going to grab our 3 blue D6. So let's go ahead and start getting our dice. We're going to make some calculations to see what that final tally will be. There's terrain to consider here. So that's the initial number of dice we start with. And now we will make adjustments to those dice. So I'm just going to read through these real quick so we can kind of get a feel for what the adjustments would be. Plunging fire, +1 die if the firing unit is on a ridge and the target is on flat. In this case, they're both up on these ridges, higher elevation, so we will not get a +1 die for that. Canister fire, so if it +1 die if the unit is firing adjacent to its target. Here it's not adjacent, so we will not get that. If the target is in a square, you get +1 die if the target unit is infantry and in a clear hex only, and it is adjacent to an enemy cavalry unit, so that's not going to happen. And desultory fire, half the dice rounded up if the unit failed its close to contact test. Apply other die adjustments first, so this will not come into play here. So the desultory fire basically is if you're in close combat. So we're not close combating here, we are ranged combat, so that desultory fire is not going to count here. So it's going to be, we're still at 3 dice. And then we can combine fire if 2 active units are stacked together or adjacent to one another firing at the same target. You may add their bombardment dice together into one roll. Modify each unit separately according to what we just did. So we could have, for instance, this unit or this unit join in and bombard with, this one actually has a bombardment factor of 2, which is pretty good for an infantry unit. And I'm looking again, I said I was going to target this unit, but maybe we want to target the units that are inside this walled victory hex. Now you must consider terrain when you're firing. That's the other thing. So I'm going to flip to the target number. The target number that we're trying to hit is what we will be rolling against. And basically the way that's going to work is once we know our target number, then we're going to be trying to roll higher than that number. And if we're greater than that number, that's going to count as 1 success. If we roll equal to it, it's a partial success. And 2 partial successes would equal 1 success. So in this case, if I were firing at the units inside that walled hex, we would check the terrain factor, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So it says if it's a walled building, detached units, and there is 1 detached unit in there, we'd have to select who we're firing at. A detached unit, we'd have to roll 6 for that to be a hit. So that's not very good. If this one, he's in clear, I think he's in clear. That unit's in clear, so we'd only have to get a 4 to hit. So 4, 5, or 6 would be either a partial or a success. I guess what that means is that if to score a success on a detached unit in a walled building, we would need to roll 2 6s with these D6 if we were targeting that unit. Now there is another unit that just moved into there, so we could target that one and we would have to roll a 5 or 6 to try to do any damage. So what do I want to do here? We've got a greater chance of hitting this one, and what is his strength points are 4. That's pretty powerful. So we could try to weaken, and I see another one I didn't flip here. So let's flip him back. I could try to weaken, and here's another one I didn't flip. I don't know how I managed to do that. When I set the game back up, I think I just put these units back out without paying much attention to their weakened side versus their full strength side. So now everybody's at full strength. So I was going to say I could weaken or try to weaken this unit. I got a better chance of trying to weaken this unit, or I could try to weaken the units inside this walled hex. We definitely want to try to take this hex. So I am going to, let's do that. Let's go ahead and fire at this hex. This unit can join in. This one has two bombardment combat factor. 1, 2, 3. So I believe he can hit. All other units may fire no further than 3 hexes. 1, 2, 3. So he could actually join in this artillery barrage. So could this one. Can they both though? I thought it said only one unit could join in. Combined fire 2 active units only. So we can only choose to, and actually there's one underneath there. I'm forgetting about the units that's stacked. And he has 2 combat factors. So yeah, we definitely want to do this. Let's attack the unit that just moved into that walled hex. So we're going to grab 2 more of these blue dice because now we have our regular artillery unit or our heavy artillery unit with its 3 attack factors. And the unit below it has 2 bombardment factors, artillery factors. So we can add those together into one roll. And again, we would go through the adjustments with what we did with the first unit. Now let's look again because now we are firing downhill. We're firing into the woods though. So we're firing into the woods down this hill. So that means each of these units will start off with their artillery factors. And then going back to the dice adjustment, plunging fire is going to add +1 die if the unit is on a ridge, or the firing unit is on a ridge, and the target unit is on flat terrain. Now it is in the woods, so I'm not sure that's considered flat terrain. So looking in the rule book, it's interesting that there is nothing about, let me look at the player's aid card real quick. There's nothing about what constitutes flat terrain. In my mind, what that would mean is flat terrain is basically an open hex. So in this case, these units that are open are just that, flat terrain hexes. The fact that this unit is in buildings and they're in woods, I'm not going to say that is what they would consider flat terrain. So we're not going to get the +1 die for that. But I will note that if they were out in the open on flat terrain hexes, then each of these units would receive 1 additional D6 if that were the case. But it's not the case, so they're not going to get that. The other thing is, now we are firing into woods, we're firing into buildings, and we're firing into walled buildings. So there's 3 types of terrain in here. And the rule book doesn't specifically say, it doesn't say at all that there's any kind of special modifiers if there's combined terrain types. So I'm assuming what happens here is we take the worst, if you will, of these terrains and apply that to the target number. So walled buildings will have the worst effect on this. And again, like I said, there's a detached unit. We're not firing at that, but the target number would be a 6 for that. We are firing at the other unit in there, and for walled buildings, then that unit is, the target number is going to be a 5. And so I'm going to grab a white D6. So right now our target number is at 5. So we're trying to roll equal to or greater than a 5 to inflict a hit on that unit that we chose, and we've got 5 D6s to do so with. So once you've figured all of that out, you're going to roll all the eligible bombardment dice, which in this case is going to be 5, because these 2 units are firing, and we'll compare each D6 to the 5, and that will determine the number of successes or failures. So let's roll these 5 D6 and see what we get. Looking for 5s and 6s, so I see a 2, a 4, and 3 5s. So we're going to pull out the 5s. So in this case, a success is in this case, a success would be a 6, because a 6 would be greater than a 5. So it would be 1 success for anything greater than a 5. A partial success for anything equal to the target number. So there's 2 partial successes. 2 partial successes equals 1 success. So there's going to be 1 hit applied. This other partial success is just going to be ignored because there's not another one to go with it. So the end result is we get 1 hit on that unit. So a unit can go through 6 steps, and let's take a look at the rule book here real quick. So yeah, the 6 steps, the first step loss would be shaken. The second would be disrupted. The third step loss, we would flip it to its battle-worn side, and we would remove the marker that's on there. So now you're on the battle-worn side, and then the 4th step loss would get shaken again. 5th step loss would be disrupted again. The 6th step loss would be the, what does it say here? The unit remains on its battle-worn side with a disrupted marker. It immediately retreats 2 hexes. With each step loss, the unit is eliminated if it cannot complete a retreat. Detached units are eliminated. So we're not there yet. This unit will suffer, though, a shaken result. So let's grab a shaken marker. And what does the shaken do? It's going to take 1 off of its Elon rating. So let's put that on this top unit. And I'm going to put it under the unit so that we know that it goes with that unit. So we'll have to remember to check those when that unit comes into play again. So now these 2 units have taken their action. They have fired. And now we can go to the next unit. This unit has a bombardment factor of 1. And it is on the same level of terrain as the unit here. So we can go through the firing motions again if we want to, or we could choose to move it forward. And if we move it forward, then we could potentially attack in a turn after that into the walled hexes there. And it might be suicidal. I'm not sure yet what the combat target numbers and values would be for that. I mean, do we want to be aggressive or not? I don't know. It is light cavalry too. So light cavalry, I think, can move 2 hexes, and we got to be careful. We can't move adjacent to an enemy unit. That would stop the unit automatically. So let's take a quick look at movement. Light cavalry can move 4 hexes, so we can actually go 1, 2, 3, 4 with this unit. So we might want to position ourselves instead of just charging in there, or we may want to bombard. So close combat's going to work a little differently than we just saw with the artillery bombardment. We're going to be still looking for target numbers, but instead of terrain, we're going to be looking at the unit's Elon rating. And here he's got a 4, which is fairly decent. And the terrain will come into effect with that target number. And if it's in a walled building, then it's going to get a +1 to that. So now we're at 5. And if it's in woods or building, it would be a +1. If it's heavy cover, it's going to get a +2. In that case, heavy cover would be if the defender is a detached unit and it's in a walled building. So that detached unit we saw is already at a 6. So that's going to be very tough to take that victory hex. I think we might want to maneuver into position a little better here. So what we're going to do is this light cavalry unit can move 4, we said. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 to get him there. And then this unit can move 2, but we're going to move him 1 for now. So he's going to go 1. And then this unit can move 2. So he can go 1, 2 to get down to here. So I'm going to try to move these units around. So I think what I may do is have these units and maybe some of these Imperial Guard maybe try to come around and flank this side. And then maybe have the rest of these just come in this way. So instead of going to the left flank and the right flank in the middle, we're just going to go left and then head on, I think. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to play a full game. We're just going to play a few turns to get a feel for how this is working. All right, so that is going to be it for the activations for 2 core. So they're over here. We pulled that now. Put our dice back and go back to the activation cup. Now you can see this game will play fast once you learn the rules. It's reminiscent of the Shattered Union series. There are no cards. I do kind of miss the card play here, but that's okay. We have the chit pull. So let's see what the next chit is. And it is the detachments. So this is a little bit different. So again, go back to your activation table and it tells you this is the activation for the Anglo-Allied Prussian Corps. And then on the back, it's got the, I think it's the back of this one, not maybe not. The detachments are, yeah, the detachments are the first thing on here. So if the detachment's activation marker is drawn, and it tells you specifically those 3 victory points, the walled cities that we have, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to tell us that what to do in each one. So it says, starting with this one, the single largest strength point French unit adjacent, well, there's no French units adjacent, but adjacent to that walled city would take an Elon test. If passed, there's no effect. If it fails, it's going to take a step loss. So if I had moved that 1 unit here, then this would have been bad because he would have had to have passed an Elon test. Otherwise, he would have become shaken. So I think maneuvering into position is the thing to do here. So if no French units are adjacent, the detached unit will rally instead. No need to rally here. Well, no, wait. Oh, yeah, the detached unit. I was thinking maybe this guy would rally, but he can't. This only applies to detached units. This is a 2-corps unit. So that's what's going to happen here. So basically nothing's going to happen. He's just going to sit there. Same thing would apply to these two cities, but again, there's no French units around him, so that's basically a no action as far as that activation is concerned. And so let's go back, draw another activation marker. And it is the CC activation. So that's the cavalry corps, I think, for the, where are the cavalry corps units? So that's up here. That's these green units, all the ones back up here, and even over here. So let's see what that means. Well, again, what that means is we're going to roll 2d6 and see what the corps does. So I'm going to need a red and a blue again. So let's roll. Let's see what we get here. What is that? I can't see. It is a 52. So let's put that to the side. 52. Consult our chart. 52 is rally around the colors. Units will regroup and harass the French forces. Each unit with shaken or disrupted marker will rally. Well, nobody has any of that yet. If such a unit is adjacent to a French unit, it will retreat and rally. So that's not going to do anything. Units that do not have a marker and are within range and line of sight of a French unit will conduct bombardment combat. So again, each unit, well, not every unit, but most units have an artillery combat factor. You'll note that with the cavalry here, there's a 0. These units may never have artillery combat bombardment. A lot of these cavalry units have 0s, which means they cannot conduct artillery bombardment. So it says, though, that the ones that can will target French units that are closest to any victory point hex. If more than one unit qualifies, it will target the nearest. Other units do nothing. So basically, any cavalry unit here will bombard a French unit. Otherwise, it's going to do nothing. And if you're wondering why they're not going to move, well, that's because the die roll is a rally around the colors result and not a movement result. So the only ones that are going to be eligible here would be, I think, this one, and I don't think he's eligible. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah, they're not even within range. He's got a 0 anyway. I shouldn't even have accounted. He cannot conduct artillery bombardment. There's a unit back here. I'm just looking to see if he has. He does have an artillery factor, but he's way back there. This one actually has a bombardment factor of 5, but not only is he down behind this hill, he can't see anyway, but he's way out of range. So no effect there, no activation's going to occur for the cavalry. So they're just going to stay where they are. And we're going to pull another activation marker. And it is the Blucher command activation. So we put that out. And again, go back to your activation table and look for Blucher. And I think he might be on the other table. He is. So it says Blucher. When the Blucher marker is drawn, follow these steps. For each Prussian corps activation marker still on the game turn track, so we still have all 3 on the game turn track, we're going to roll a die. On a result of 1 or 2, await further orders. They will not move, no effect. On a 3 through a 6, they will march. So that means they're marching closer to battle. And what will happen is we will move the marker down the game turn track, moving them closer to the turn marker, which would bring them into play. So let's go ahead and conduct that first for each marker. So let's start with the 4 corps, the Prussian 4 corps, and we're looking for a 3, 4, 5, or 6 for them to move. And we roll, what is that? It is a 1, so they're going to stay put. The 2 corps now will roll. It's a 4, so they're actually going to march. That's going to bring them to the turn 10 line now, so they're getting closer to the battle. And this last one, the 1 corps, they roll a 1, so they're not going to move. So one of these Prussian units did actually move. I kind of like the way that works. It's a lot of uncertainty as to when these Prussian units will enter the fray, so that's kind of cool. All right, so that's the Blucher marker. We go back to our activation draw cup. And I still have a Napoleon marker out. I haven't forgotten that. And now we are drawing the 4 cavalry corps for the French. And where are they located? They are over here, I thought. Yeah, there's 2 units over here. And they are both, I will show you this, they are both heavy cavalry. So you see the HC above the green Elon marker there. They are both heavy cavalry. So they're gonna get to move a little faster, a little further, or maybe it's just the opposite. They're not gonna get to move as far as the light cavalry. So yeah, instead of moving 4 hexes, they can move 3 hexes. And I think we're gonna have them move. We're gonna kind of bring them, I think, around this way. Maybe we can harass some of these French units. So let's see, they could go 1, 2, 3. So let's move this one 1, 2, 3. And the other one is going to go 1, 2, 3. So we're bringing the cavalry out and around this way, and they cannot combat. Well, I say that, but remember, I do have the Napoleon marker, and I believe that would allow me to fire here if I chose to do so. And let's see, each unit, active unit may move 1 hex and then do another unit action. So it looks like we could, if we chose to move, we could increase our movement allowance by 1 hex for free. It's a forced, not a forced march. So we could actually move them 1 more, but I don't want to do that. And I don't want to fire here yet either. So we're just going to let that go. That's the 4 cavalry corps has run around to the side there on the right, and then we're going to draw another activation marker. And that activation marker is, that is a Wellington marker. So this is the first Wellington marker that we've drawn. We grab our Wellington Old Nosy table, and we're going to roll on that to see what this means. So first we're going to do one of 2 things. It says rally, and you know what? I didn't finish the Blucher marker, so we did do the, we moved these units, and then we should have rallied 1 Prussian unit, but there's no Prussians out, so we didn't do that. And then we should have rolled the dice again, the 11 through 66 2d6s to give us a result. So let's do that before I get too far and see what we get. I don't think it would have done anything, but it could remove this Napoleon marker, and I forgot about that. So we roll a 31. So a 31 on that table would be revenge, and it's basically Prussian units that are on the map adjacent to French units would have done a close combat. So none of that would have taken place. And it says all map Prussian units conduct movement through the enemy hex for that corps and move towards the nearest French unit. Well, they're not in play yet, so it's not going to do anything. But I should have done that. We did roll for the movement, but we didn't roll the actual d6, the 2d6 to get a result. So we did that. But now we're drawing the Wellington marker. We're on the old nosy table, so let's roll that. Where we rolled that, we got a 31. So a 31 is the thin red line. Place the thin red line reminder marker in the Allied condition marker box. All British infantry and detached units have their strength point value increased by 1 strength point and their Elan rating by +1. So wow, that's going to add +1 to both strength and Elan. So that thin red line marker, I think, is over here. There it is. So we take the thin red line marker out and put it in here. So we've got to remember these markers are here because they will affect what's going on the game map here. So that's the result of the Wellington marker. Back to the activation cup. Pull our next activation, and it is the 3 corps for the French. We'll put that over here. So where is 3 corps? It is over here. So there's 2 of those. And again, these are heavy cavalry units. I want to swing these heavy cavalry units around this way because we want to attack over here. So let's take the first one, and he's going to move. These can move 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And this other one, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. So again, they're swinging around this way. So that's going to be our activation for the 3 corps. And then we're going to go back to, well, let's see, wait a minute here. I'm just checking if I want to use the Napoleon counter, because this will go away if we don't use it. So it's kind of silly not to use it. And we may save that for if we get attacked, because we can increase our Elan rating by 2 for one of those things. Again, just looking, the Imperial Guard has not activated yet, and but they're way back here. They're not going to combat anyway. I was going to say we could use that to increase our Elan rating for that, but that's not going to come into play. And again, we had the option. I just moved these. They could move and fire, and maybe we want to do this. Let's see. So each unit may move 1 hex. Okay, so it's 1 hex and fire. Well, that wouldn't do us any good anyway. We moved all 3 hexes. So we're going to go back to the activation cup then. Risk that Napoleon marker. It's early in the game, so that Napoleon marker, it's valuable, but not as valuable as it would be if we had units within close combat range. So let's draw another marker. There's our other Napoleon marker, so we're going to pull it out. Now we have 2 of those things. And back to the draw cup. And this time it is the Imperial Guard activation. And again, all those are back here. So let's see how we want to move the Imperial Guard. And I think there's some artillery under here. So there's a heavy artillery unit with a factor of 6. That's nice. Did both heavy artillery factors of 6. We want to get those to the front quickly as we can. So let's move the artillery units first, as I knock counters all over the board. So this heavy artillery unit can move, what did we say? Let's check our movement factors for heavy artillery. 2 hexes. So it's going to go 1, 2. And we'll put this unit was with it. So we're going to hold on for a second and move this artillery unit. This artillery unit can move 2. So it's going to go, it was here, it can go 1, 2. And we're going to put it here. And then this unit was here. So he can move 2. And we're going to move him, what are we going to do? This is an old guard unit. And I'm going to move it, I'm going to go 1, 2. So now these 3 units have moved. This old guard unit's going to go 1, 2. This one, well, let's see, let's go over here. This one's going to go 1, 2 to come down the slope to the road. This one's going to go 1, 2. This one's going to go 1, 2. And this one's going to go 1, 2. And then over here we have 2 more. This one is going to go 1, 2. And does he want to do 1, 2? He's going to go, let's just go down 1, 2. So he's going to go down the slope to the clear. And this one's going to go, this one is going to go 1, 2, and I'm leery about splitting these 2 off from the rest of these because of the activation chip, but I'm going to do it. Probably not a good idea, but let's go ahead and do that. So that is the Imperial Guard activations. Now they've moved, and we'll go back to the cup. There's still 2 left in here. We'll pull this one, and it is the 1 corps activation. And 1 corps is sitting here. And let's see, so we do have heavy artillery sitting here with a factor of 3. And there's a unit that's not artillery. So we only have 1 artillery unit. 1, 2, 3. So he can fire. This one's in the clear. They're both at the same elevation. So I think we want to take a shot across at that unit. So again, we're going to target this unit. The heavy artillery is firing. And his factor is 3. So let's go back through that again. Let's get this out of the way. So bombardment, we are looking at, he's within range of 4 dice adjustment, not plunging fire. I should also get my 3 artillery bombardment factor D6s out. So then we'll adjust. So there's the 3 for his factor. It's not plunging fire, no additional dice for that. Point blank, not adjacent, so no. Target's not in square, and it's not the desultory fire because there's not close combat here. So this unit is the target. It is in clear hex. So our target number is 4. And we shall fire. So again, we're looking for greater than 4 is a success. Equal to 4 is a partial success. Anything less is a failure. So let's fire. Oops, and one goes off the table. A 6, a 3, and this one was a 2. So that is 1 success, and the others are failures. So we do hit. So a shaken result will go onto this unit. And we fired straight across, so let's put that shaken marker underneath it. All right, so that was successful. And now we have our remaining units that can take an action. And I'm going to move, this unit's going to go down, 1, 2. The unit that was under the artillery is going to go down, 1, 2. This unit is going to move forward 1. He can't go down because that would cost 2 to go down. This artillery unit has fired. This unit is going to go 1, 2. And then this unit will go, he's kind of trapped here. Let's just move him forward with the artillery unit. And so the 1 corps has moved. And I'm looking, because I think I forgot this guy. So he's going to move up 1, 2. And did I move this 4 corps marker? Or was he already there? I'll check that. I may have moved him, but if I did, I'll move him back to where he was. All right, so that is the 1 corps activation. There's only 1 more left in the cup. We pull it. It is the Wellington marker again. So we're going to bring out that old nosy table and roll our... Well, first let's read what we do. Again, before you roll the dice, this is like with the detached or the Blucher unit where you had things to do first. Then you roll the dice. So when Wellington marker is drawn, rally 1 Anglo-Allied unit, not a detached unit, that has the most hits. If multiple hits qualify, rally the one with the best Elan rating. If those are tied, then we just choose a unit. So we do have 2 units that are hit. So this Clinton unit has a shaken and this Lambert unit has a shaken. So the Elans are tied. And so it says that if they are tied, choose infantry. Otherwise, choose any unit. They're both infantry. And so here's a case where it says choose any unit. And I think in this case, you've got 2 options. 1, roll a d6. 1, 2, 3, it's this one. 4, 5, 6, it's that one. Or choose the one that makes the most sense. So if another player were playing the allied units instead of this flow chart, what do you think that player would do? I think he probably would rally the one sitting inside the walled city, but maybe not. Because, and I say maybe not because the one sitting inside the walled city is protected, a lot of protection in there because of the fact that it's in a walled city, in the woods, in buildings. Whereas this one is in the open, so maybe it needs more reinforcements, or maybe it needs to get back to its side that is fresh. I'm going to go the route of, let's roll a d6. On a 1, 2, or 3, it's this one. 4, 5, or 6, it's that one. So I'm going to say this one attempts to rally. So its Elan rating is 4. So let's look at the rally for a die roll here. And it should be on an Elan test, right? And that's what it was asking for. Rally the one with the best ER. And let's see. So we're looking for a roll a die and compare to the Elan rating. If the die roll is less than or equal to the Elan rating, it passes. If it's greater, it fails. So this unit is looking for 4 or less to pass. We're going to roll a red d6 here. He rolls a 1, so he passes, and that means that he does in fact rally. And looking at the rules again, I don't think I even needed to conduct an Elan test there. I think it's what it's saying is this unit is automatically rallied. Looking at page 8, rule number 3 under page 8, rally. The rally action allows a unit to recover some casualties and reorganize. Eliminated units cannot rally, of course. A unit may recover 1 step loss by removing or downgrading a marker only. So it's not saying they needed to conduct a test here, so I don't think I needed to roll this d6. If that's wrong, let me know in the comments below. So basically, either way, this shaken marker will come off of this unit now because of this Wellington action that came out. So we just did that. And with that, there are no more activation markers in the cup. They are all out. So that is going to take us to the end phase. And the end phase says after completing all current activations and there's no activation markers remaining, then we remove all the markers from the Allied Condition Markers box, replace all the activation markers from the used marker box, and put them back in the container, and move the game turn marker up 1 and proceed. So what's going to happen here is we will take away these activation markers, or the coalition status markers will come out. This remove reverse slope marker reminder, because we are now going into turn 3, that's going to come out. These Prussian markers, of course, stay on. All of these activation markers, including the 2 Napoleon markers we did not use, will go back into the activation cup. We're resetting everything. They're all back in the cup. We're at the start of turn 3. I'm going to end it here. We've seen a complete turn. We saw a little bit of bombardment combat. We still haven't seen close action yet, but that is happening, or it's going to happen. So I will definitely play at least one more turn. When we come back, I will probably have some close combat. I think we're going to see it over here first. Maybe here, who knows? We got some cavalry coming in. So there you go. I did want to show you how this game plays. The Vive l'Empereur Solitaire Waterloo. Again, not strictly solitaire. You can play 2-player if you choose to do so. All right, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't. That's a big help. There's a Patreon page if you'd really like to support the channel. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you back here next time.